We live in a culture obsessed with starting over, but terrible at following through. Every year, we promise ourselves change, discipline, health, success, and peace. And every year, most of those promises quietly die. Not because we are incapable, but because we are never taught how real change actually works. We're getting close to the end of the new year, or the end of the year right now, and I figure this is the perfect time to talk about making resolutions and really being able to follow through. So, thanks for joining us today. Hello and welcome to the new Ashla podcast. My name is Michael Perry and I'm joined today by Justin Gates. We're talking about New Year's resolutions and how to actually follow through on the goals you set. Now, this is going to be a hard one because it's about making goals more manageable. When you say, Justin, I think that's really where a lot of the trouble first begins as we start getting really elaborate.
I think we're talking about making them real.
Yeah.
and understanding that everything we do meets us where we're at, whether we like it or not. And if we don't tend to certain things, then it's going to meet us in a bad spot. And I think that's why these things fail us, right? And most goals don't fail because people are lazy or undisciplined. They fail because they're built on unstable foundations.
Well, I'd say often it's based on this motivation of wanting change, but there's no real structure to change.
Motivation is a horrible fuel. It is a horrible fuel for this.
Yeah. It's like one of the things they talk about in a lot of the books I've read is when it comes to motivation, when you start a project, you get all this hormonal hits of dopamine and serotonin. You start feeling really engaged and like you're doing something. And it does not take long before that emotional high of accomplishing those goals starts to fade. And with that fading, so does our effort levels.
Well, yeah, because we're out of alignment somewhere, or in many spots, we're out of alignment. We're allowing ourselves to be driven by this. Again, we're treating motivation like a fuel, and it makes us happy and giddy, and we think that's what's driving us, but really that fuel burns out. But really motivation is emotional, and emotionals are not consistent, are they? We talk about this all the time. We have our peaks and valleys. Even the best of us, those of us who know how to regulate and know how to, who have high emotional IQ, we still have inconsistencies in our emotions because we're human beings. And like you said, when that fuel burns out or that motivation dips or dives or dodges, it really brings down the whole structure of our goal. Because again, we're building them on something that's not stable or consistent, even for the best of us.
Yeah, it's like when I look at setting goals, when you actually want to cultivate a goal for like a workout routine is a great example. There's something that's perpetual. It's not, I'm going to clean this room, which is finished after you complete it.
Mm-hmm.
It's you push the ball down, it starts going downhill, you have that momentum from the hormones, but then you got to push it uphill. And momentum is pushing things uphill because it takes you cultivating the habit before it starts going over the tip and starts going downhill and pushes itself.
Yeah.
I think it's what takes 30 to 90 days to develop a habit.
And that's if you could stick with it, man. That's the hard part. That's the hard part because we have to build it on something that's real. And what's real, whether we want to admit it or not, or whether we're trying to hide from it or ignore it, is where we're at. Our lowest level of healing is where these things meet us, where all of these things meet us. And that's why in this podcast, we talk a lot about let's pause and face these things so that we're not suffering from them later, right? But aren't a lot of goals driven by pressure? What do you say?
Oh yeah, pressure, shame. It's this needing to create change in our lives and not for the desire of wanting that change. It's feeling like, oh, I'm overweight and you're shaming yourself for the way you look. Or I'm going to quit drinking because I know it's a problem and it's impacting people around me.
Yeah.
Those are motivators, but that's not what's going to help you actually overcome what you need to create a sustained and actionable plan.
Yeah. Yeah, those things are formed in those moments of self-judgment. You know, the whole I need to fix myself, right? And that's one of the prime motivators for the new year every year. Or as you said, a little bit of shame. I should be better by now. What's wrong with me? This year I won't mess it up. I'm not going to mess it up, Michael. This year is the year. It's my year.
Yep.
But when those things are running the engine of your life, that goal is already compromised before you even get moving. Before you're out of the gate, you've already sabotaged it.
Well, and it's like, how often is it shame that propels us to want to make change? But in the end, shame is exactly what brings us right back to where we were. Whether it's feeling uncomfortable at the gym or trying to drown those emotions, it is this horrible cycle that just keeps us perpetuating.
Look, man, you can fill your race car up with as much motivational fuel as you want, but if 3 out of 4 of your tires are flat, you're not going anywhere. You're just not.
Nope.
You're just not gonna,
Perfectly said.
you're not going to go anywhere. Um, but another big reason is because we build these goals around these ideal conditions. That's a really big one too. When things are good, it's easy to feel motivated and it's easy to feel, and this is why the Path of Ashla and this podcast and everything we do related to that, make sure we leave room for shadow work because, we have to be ready more than we need to plan on fanciful conditions. We have to make sure we have readiness in our bones, right? Because,
Well,
well, I was just going to say, because you'll plan for a version of your life where you're always rested perfectly and you're always uninterrupted and you're always confident and you're always emotionally regulated, but these things are not guarantees. These things are not something that even the best of us, have trouble keeping consistently. Because why? We're human beings.
you know, now, Teal Swan, in her book, The Completion Process, she talks about how one of the things that really sabotages people the most is when it comes to parts work, which is something I'm getting more and more into lately. I find it fascinating. But if you have two parts that have conflicting desires, this is again why shadow work is so important. You will always end up sabotaging the goal until you get both parts aligned with having that same outcome. Because if one part of you wants to start working out so you can be fit and feel confident in yourself, but the other part is afraid of has the shame of being seen, it's going to constantly try to deter you from going to the gym because you're going to be putting yourself into an uncomfortable situation.
Right. You'll be around a lot of people, and if you're out of shape, you're going to feel scared that you're there. Um, and really, yeah, that's a big problem, this identity conflict that you're talking about, because it does go unaddressed for most of us. Either we don't know how to address it, or we just, like you said, we just rather just hide it. Um, because, like you said, a part of you may want growth, but another part just wants safety and familiarity, or
Yep.
that emotional kind of armor to protect them from literally everything outside of them. But you know these unexpected responsibilities come up. Life does not work the way that we plan. there's
Yeah.
there's energy fluctuations, there's stress, right?
Yeah.
There's
Life.
life, just life provides us plenty of opportunities to practice and practice and practice some more. So if you build these goals on these identity issues, or if you build these goals around these perfect days, those plans, those wish it, want it, do it's, they're not going to survive ordinary life. They're just,
you know, for everyone listening, now, New Year's resolutions for me, most of my adult life, I have been so religious about making the perfect plan. Like I would make a binder, I would have my schedule laid out, I would have my action steps, I would plan out my New Year's resolutions.
Mhm.
And one of the most important things, if you take away anything from this episode, I know this is an episode on New Year's resolutions. Do not let New Year's be what causes resolutions, because the minute the New Year's over and you don't have things that stick, you quit and then you wait a year. And
The
that was
whole
the
year,
loop
yeah,
I was constantly in. You can't wait, again, these perfect days, right?
yeah.
We're waiting for New Year's to come around because that's the day I'm going to change my life. Now, resolutions are something that happens with effort and consistency. And it also means that if you fall off the bandwagon, you get back on it. You don't build habits without friction.
No,
And it's about learning to keep getting on that horse.
literally right before this episode, before we started recording this episode, you said to me, I'm sorry that I haven't been posting as many blogs as I planned. And what did I say to you? Do you
You'll
remember?
pick it up when you're ready. And
Find a spot to pick it back up and just do it. Because
exactly.
that's how you get back on, right?
Yeah.
Nobody ever sticks to their plans 100%. Even even if you plan them and you do all the emotional work and you do all the stuff we're talking about, something will throw a wrench in it. I promise you, that's life.
Yep.
But the deeper truth here is that you're not failing your goals. You're just catching strays sometimes. It's just the way
Yeah.
it is, right? But
That's the truth.
but if your inner system's built on fear or pressure or self-rejection, no amount of motivation or willpower will ever sustain that lasting change. Because goals that survive real life must be built on honesty and structure, realistic structure, not this fanciful stuff, and compassion for yourself, grace and compassion that, yeah, guess what? You're going to fall off that horse and you just got to get back up there and
Yep.
not, not look for the perfect opportunities like the next new year, because that's a
Yeah.
horrible
And
time.
don't judge yourself for falling off the horse.
And besides, the new year is a horrible time. And by the way, this is a new year. The old New Year's used to be in spring back in the day, right? That was a much better time to start changing things because the weather was better, there was plenty of food, and there was all kinds of things. The middle of winter is the most horrible time to try and change something. I never do New Year's resolutions. And because I'm never in a good mood in the middle of winter, man. I'm cold and I'm grumpy, and you know, I'm just trying to stay alive and warm. So, anyways, yeah.
Yeah.
So that
So
so you were talking about, or we have been talking about how fanciful we try to be and extra. Like really, there really is a difference between a goal and fantasy, isn't there?
yeah, I mean, I think one of the places people get hung up the most is they fail to take into account who they are today. There's this concept in psychology that there's the ideal self and then there's the true self.
Mm-hmm.
And we have the more elaborate the ideal self is, the more self esteem and self respect is lowered. And when we set goals, often it's like, I'm going to be that successful business owner this year. That's what I'm going to do. And then they get hit with all the rejection. They had to realize they don't have all the skills that they thought would just come naturally. We got to meet reality where it's at. If we ignore our current skill sets and habits, we're going to be met with resistance every time. And that resistance can overpower us easy, especially if we don't take into account the reality of what it's going to take.
Yeah, you're bringing up one of the most common mistakes people make is mistaking that fantasy for intention, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because fantasies feel fun, man, inspiring and clean and powerful, whereas goals feel kind of grounded and sometimes boring and often inconvenient.
Yeah.
Especially the ones we make around health and dieting and working out and stuff. That's probably the biggest one I see people make. You ever been to the gym for more than 3 months in a row? It sucks, man. It hurts. It hurts. You smell funny, and you don't ever see any real progress because you're looking at yourself every day. Someone else will come up
Yep.
to you. This is why it's like, someone else come up to you and say, man, you must be working out. Feels good. But we never see it because it's hard for us to kind of gauge that because we're always constantly with ourselves. So,
Yeah.
but
Well, and I think the gym is another important one to look at, because it's like one of the things I had to learn the hard way is, like, gym has always been on my list of I want to build this habit. And I have struggled and I've struggled and I've come to realize, like, you got to realize where your lifestyle is, who you are as a person. For me, the one time I was able to start hitting the gym and do it for 6 months consecutively is when I found a workout program that worked for me. Hiking. I joined a kickboxing group where they would run us through different exercises. It's about finding what is something you can at least find in some enjoyment in when you're doing it, because going and hitting the bench press every day isn't for everyone. Going and running running a 5K is not for everyone. You got to find what exercise speaks to you.
yeah, the future is always in motion, always in motion, right? We talk about this a lot where The choices we make now create a potential future and a potential future version of us. And fantasies ignore that fact. They ignore who we are today. We fantasize about who we want to be and who we are in the future without doing the work here, making the choices here, cutting cutting cost and doing these other things. Because it bypasses your current habits, your current energy patterns, your responsibilities, and even the capacity of your vessel. You know, it just imagines a future version of you who wakes up different, behaves differently, somehow magically no longer struggles,
Yeah, right.
has problems in the world, right? It just, and it feels good to do that.
You know?
I have fallen victim to that many times back in the wish it, want it, do it days, Um,
You know?
but again, all that does is create that fuel, that motivation that just can't sustain. You can't, because again, you're driving on three flat tires, man. It just,
Yeah.
you have to address the tires before the fuel's ever in question.
Yeah. I mean, I think the key thing to keep in mind is if your goal requires you to become a different person overnight, it's not a goal. It's an escape. It is you trying to cling to something outside of you.
Right, because a real goal starts where you actually are. It it's built respectively to what your current lifestyles are, your current habits, your current emotional state, your current whatever. And it doesn't just try to override it or ignore it. It's like, to be real, it's like giving my real energy, my real schedule, my real nervous system, what is sustainable for me now, right? Not what I wish I am in 15 years or whatever. Because I'll tell you right now, the guy I am right now was not the guy I ever assumed I'd be 15 years ago. I promise you that.
Right.
I promise you that. And thank God I didn't, hold attachment to that, because I'd be really disappointed, I think.
Yeah.
I like where I'm at. I love what I do, but this isn't something I would even consider for myself. So yeah, you gotta be respectful to your current present self so that you can build that future.
Yeah. And I think that's why it's so important that when you're building these goals, you know, there's a difference between identity based goals and outcome based goals. And a lot of people have their goals based on these fantasies, these ideals we want to hold ourselves to. But we got to be able to, again, meet ourselves where we're at. It's one of the best books out there, Atomic Habits by James Clear, talks about how when you're incorporating goals, it's about little shifts within your routine. A plane flying to the UK, if it deviates by 1 degree flying from the United States, it'll land up in Africa.
Mm-hmm.
And real change happens in these little shifts we make in our lifestyles. Not in these dramatic, I'm hitting the gym 5 days a week starting this year. Not in, I'm going to quit drinking altogether.
This is why when I teach visualization, I do it in a much different way than you would typically see, don't I? Because you get stuck in that fantasy. You get stuck in that movie that you're creating. Yes, it is important to see and feel and let yourself experience that thing you want to become. But you cannot let that carry you into a fantasy, because one of two things will happen. Either A, you'll just give up because you'll just be happy with the fantasy and you won't actually care about getting to the goal, right? Or B, you'll blur that line between what's real and what's not, and then, because these fantasies fixate on the outcomes, the body, the income, the transformation. And if you're fixated and you are certainly just keeping the fantasy alive through your visualizations, and not doing any of the work that you have to do, the hard work, the crappy work, the boring work, the normal whatever work to get there, then you're going to be really, really, really beat down from that. And you're going to be trapped by that, because, again, you obsess over the end picture too much while ignoring those basic, tiny little things, like you said, those basic, tiny daily behaviors that you must do, that are required to get there or to get to some version of there. We can't obsess over the outcome. We got to let go. We got to surrender to the process. We must, and we say this a lot with the law of attraction stuff, we must identify what we need, identify what we want. We have to kind of visualize that a little bit, but we have to let the process work. We have to let ourselves surrender so that we can do those little things without being obsessed with that.
Well, I think another key thing is just like, is the goal that you want to obtain something that even resonates with who you are as a person?
Right.
I had someone who's really dear to me, and he was always chasing the entrepreneurial dream, but his ideas and aspirations never had anything to do with his personality or who he was. It was just, I need to go make money.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, that's great, but unless you have A, the skill set to follow this path, or B, enough personal interest to carry you through learning what you need to, you're not going to be able to reach where you want to go.
Yeah. Right. Because and this is another trap. That person is just in the comparison game. Well, I see them doing this. I want what they have. I don't need to know how they got it or what. And it's usually a lot of stuff, and it's usually very, very niche down to where you must resonate. We talked about this on a few episodes back, probably a few months ago, where you get what you resonate with, not with what you want or wish for.
Yeah.
So we have to change our alignment if that's what we want. We must also, do all these little tiny boring human things, but we also must align ourselves to that.
Yeah. Well, that's such an important point because, again, I know for me that was my greatest issue is I was down here and my goals were up here. And yeah, it's great to have these aspirations and see what I want to become, but I had no realistic perspective of the work it was going to take to get here. If we don't make that bar a little bit higher instead of through the roof, we're going to always meet with resistance and we're always going to fail.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's that small handful of times you might succeed, but I tell you, it's going to happen 2 times maybe in your life.
Yeah. 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 You certainly cannot compare without knowing what that person went through to get to that, because it may not even be possible for you to do it the way they did it, because maybe the way they did it had a lot of stuff before they even knew they wanted to do that. You just can't compare. You have to have faith and trust that the universe has things for you too. You can't just compare what the universe is giving someone else, what God is giving someone else, because we all have different needs. We all have different purposes. We all have different things that we are really good at. And it doesn't do us any good to compare. And again, it's not a race. It doesn't matter where that person's starting out, either in front of you or behind you. They're running their race, you run yours.
Yeah. Well, and it's just like how much luck was in their circumstances that led to that? What was their network like and the opportunities that presented itself there? And mind you, I'm a firm believer that luck isn't just something where you stumble across $1 million. Luck is where preparation meets opportunity.
Mm-hmm. And awareness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's like, what's your favorite saying? It's like you never rise to who you want to become. You always fall to the lowest level of your training.
Yep. Or the lowest level.
Because life will humble you at some point in time. You might get that high starting off, but the minute that wears off, you're going to fall to your lowest level of training.
Right. Because your opponent may have better training. Their lower level training may be higher than yours. This also applies to healing. You fall to your lowest level of healing too. That's why we practice, and that's why we do these things. We try to make them habits in our lives, so that level of healing or that level of training gets a little higher as we go, a little bit more, and then eventually it becomes effortless action. And even when it becomes effortless action, Michael, you still got to watch out.
Yep.
Life will humble you. Life will throw curveballs at you. It will stress you out. It will, it will.
So when we were talking a bit about motivation, and motivation is a fairly unreliable source of drive to really help you carry habits, and not just into the New Year's, but into the future. What would you say instead is the most important thing to help you carry your goals into the next stage?
Hmm. Instead of motivation, I would sit down and look at what actual realistic results that I want, right? I would start building around that because, again, that honors the ethos of truth, it honors the ethos of connection, and it also honors the ethos of integrity. Because, again, if you're creating goals that does not align with who you really are on the inside, they're just not going to get very far, right?
Yeah.
They're just not. And that kind of brings us to these identity-based goals versus the outcome-based goals, doesn't it?
Yeah. Most definitely. Well, I think another key thing here is just the discipline you have in your life. Discipline is so important, and many people don't take this as a measurement that they evaluate.
Mm-hmm.
But where does our discipline lie? Are we someone who have we trained our nervous systems to handle the threshold of stress that comes when we're under pressure or things aren't going our way? Because realistically, our nervous system is the direct gauge that tells us just how much discomfort we can handle. And it's discipline that helps us carry us through those moments.
Well, and again, discipline's based on alignment. I'm a very disciplined individual. I could sit for hours and hours and hours. I can do a lot of things that would people would consider to be and consider me to be highly disciplined, including dealing with stress. But if the things I'm doing, and the reasons for my stress, if I'm not aligned with that, in other words, if it's not something I actually want to do, then the stress will crush me, even though I'm really disciplined. So again, this goes back to alignment. You have to be aligned, and you have to learn to resonate with the things you really, really actually want. And spoiler alert, those are often not the same things. The things we want aren't usually the things we're resonating to, in both
Yeah.
a good way or a bad way. So
Well, I think you brought it up perfectly. How much of what we're trying to do is in direct comparison to someone else or some ideal life we want to have? Again, the person I cared about who was always chasing the entrepreneur, being an entrepreneur. And it's like I saw his motive. His motive is I wanted that nice house, I wanted that nice car, I wanted to provide for my family, which is beautiful aspirations. But that's not something that's going to be able to carry you through the struggle that is becoming an entrepreneur, especially when there's going to be a lot of times where you don't have that kind of money.
well, because they were taught to chase outcomes, like all of us were,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Lose the weight because this guy looks better. I want to look like that guy. I want to lose the weight. This guy or this lady's rich. I want to make the money. These people are madly in love, and I see them, and I got to find the relationship. I got to finish the project. Now, these things sound very practical, and
Yeah.
somebody would really argue that, well, yeah, this is the best way to go about it because it's like this peer pressure in kind of a good way, and no, no, no. And that's the high motivation, tons of external validation, which we do not give a crap about, and perfect are ideal conditions, but they're fragile because, again, when life says nope and it flicks you in your third eye, then everything comes falling all around you. But these identity-based goals work in the opposite direction because instead of asking, what do I want to achieve? You learn to ask, who must I become in order for this to be natural or for this to resonate and come to me?
Yeah.
Outcomes are temporary, Michael.
Yeah. That was one of the greatest epiphanies I had on this journey. I realized I was constantly looking at the top of the mountain from the summit and be like, I can get there in 3 steps.
Mm-hmm.
Little did I realize the person I'd need to become that would have to learn how to trek through the cold and make a fire and hunt for food. And it doesn't mean I'm at the peak still, but I'm learning.
Habits rarely grow out of desire. At least the ones that last. They rarely grow out from desire. They grow out of self-concept, out of doing this work where we face ourselves and we try to integrate all parts of ourselves into a whole being. Because if someone even believes just a little bit, and we talk about how our thoughts rotate and repeat and repeat and repeat and repeat, right?
Yeah.
If someone has just an inkling of belief that they are inconsistent, or if they really actually are inconsistent, or they're undisciplined, or they're always behind, or you know, they will unconsciously sabotage even the best plan. There is no perfect plan that can stand the pressure of that.
Right.
And it's not about laziness, or it's not about ignorance or being stupid, or not knowing how to do the perfect plan. It's because these present behaviors are in conflict with who they believe they are.
Yeah. When it's like, how much self trust is there?
Right.
Because I think a lot of people never take that into account either. When self trust is one of the most important variables to having goals and making change in life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And this is, I know I use a lot of affirmations, and I talked about visualization earlier. This is why I don't allow my students to at least ever hear from me. I don't that, things like affirmations are magic pills, because your identity doesn't change through affirmations or visualizations alone. It changes through the repeated action that provides evidence. We need evidence. Human beings need evidence for things. We do. It's just what we are. But evidence is a small part. Trust and faith is the larger part. But if we create this evidence for ourselves, even tiny, even small, like kept promises, right? Or doing things for ourselves that we say we're going to do.
Yeah.
The whole jar of marbles things. The marble is small, the jar is faith and trust. We fill that up with little bits of evidence, right?
Yeah.
Um, and this will start to rewrite that internal narrative, because every action says to us, it's evidence of, this is who I am now, and then this is who I am now, and then this is who I am now, and that jar gets fuller and fuller over time. Our whole self will start to accept that new identity as truth, because it is true.
Absolutely.
And besides, man, like these outcome based goals, when you're chasing these things, you're comparing, it just wears you down, dude. You get exhausted because you're just
Oh yeah.
trying to drag your old self around, and you're trying to run it around and try to be like this person or a future self. These identity based things are more quiet. But they're stronger. They're more boring. There's less dopamine. Very little motivation required, because you're taking small little steps to unfold into someone who shows up, someone who practices, someone who follows through, even especially imperfectly, because you're not meant to be perfect. You're meant to be present.
Well, I've seen it so many times where think about sales positions. I had a friend who went into sales, and it's just this. And I was guilty of this too. 10 years ago, I got into sales. And it's like, I want to jump in there. I'm going to be able to make these cold calls. I'm going to be able to deal with the rejection.
Yeah.
I got this.
Right.
And then you realize as the weeks go on, it's like, wow, my pay is impacted by how good I am at this.
Right.
And it's just like, I guess it does take longer than a month to incorporate these skills. And it's been great because I have a friend who's works in construction, and he's been jumping into sales the last couple of years. And me and him have been on the healing journey together for years and just always resonate with each other. And it's been great watching him. He's been practicing sales now for 2 years. He's not amazing at it, but he's getting good at it.
Right.
And it took that consistency of 2 years of dealing with those rejections, constantly putting himself out there and learning the trade set.
Yeah. But it's something that resonates deep within him. That's where he feels that resiliency. Dude, sales is a rough gig, man. Let me tell you something. I'm going to date myself here, because I don't think these people have been in business for 20 years probably. I don't know, maybe. But when I was 17, man, I took a job as a telemarketer for a picture company called Olin Mills. Remember Olin Mills?
I do not.
So it's an old ass, it was like a photo studio place, right? And they had these little photo studios set up in malls, back when malls were bigger and more popular. And I would go in there after school. I'd go in there, and I'd have this little closet that I'd sit in with a telephone, and I'd just get a list. And I thought, man, this would be easy money, dude. I learned quickly that I hate selling things and I never will, because I do not resonate with that, right?
You know,
It's not getting yelled at, it's not getting, called names and stuff. It was I just couldn't see myself giving a crap about selling anything. So I
right.
never resonated with it. It was which which I know you've kind of poked at me a little bit over the last couple of years. It's like, you don't have to be a salesman, Justin, but you need to start learning how to market yourself a little better. And, but I think those are very two different things, at least for me, you know.
Well, and I think one of the key factors, and this ties into this authenticity, and it's that are you selling something that you're passionate about, or are
Right,
you just selling something to sell something?
right.
Because I realized that was the big thing for me was I've had two different positions where I've jumped into sales, and one of them I was passionate about, and the other one I wasn't.
Hmm.
And I lasted far longer in the position of trying to sell something that I'm like, you know what, I believe in this product compared to, man, I really feel like I'm just trying to take people's money.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, you really have to resonate, because we always talk about, and we're going to talk about motivation and discipline in the nervous system, but you really have to decide, does this resonate with me? Can this meet me? Or, if when this, I say, when this meets me where I am I ready for this? Even if I do want it, even if I do resonate with it, what kind of work do I have to do? So you really have to, again, you have to really identify with the goal, in a way that, am I truly ready? Who must I become in order for this to be easy or natural and lasting? So,
No, exactly. You know, I think one of the most important things when we're building a habit, when we're trying to do something new, is the discipline of repetition.
mhm,
Being able to constantly work that muscle that we're not used to working, or not using the muscle we're used to working, depending on what the habit or change is.
right.
And when we're doing this, I think setting realistic expectations on ourselves when it comes to the frequency. I know Allison and I, we've made a goal the last month we're going to exercise more. And it's not going to be we're going to hit the gym 5 days a week. It's like, let's just start getting simple movement in. Let's go for, on the days we're not podcasting or we don't have plans going on, let's go for a walk. And so every day that we don't have anything going on, we go for a walk. So 3, 4 times a week.
Right.
And like my goal is to get to the gym because I do want to start doing that type of exercise, but it's probably going to be transition from walking to then going and using the treadmill twice a week.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the things James Clear brings up in his book is like often just make the goal go to the gym.
Hmm.
Drive up to it, sit in the parking lot, leave. Next day, drive up, walk inside for a minute, leave. Like just get yourself used to build that muscle that's never been exercised or that's atrophied
Yeah.
slowly.
You're talking about discipline, right?
Yeah.
Motivation is very seductive, but it's super unreliable. Um, Emotions feel great sometimes. They feel bad sometimes too, but those are also unreliable. Peaks and valleys for all these things, because the moment, everything starts feeling exciting and hopeful, and then the moment something comes that is inconvenient or heavy or whatever, it's goodbye to those goals. But what you're talking about is discipline, and discipline isn't just formed in karate studios or the military, right?
You know?
It's building these tiny little things that build into habits. That's discipline, because you guys walk for 3 or 4 times a week long enough. Nothing out of the ordinary is gonna really stress that, right? Because, okay, fine, we don't get to walk at 1 o'clock. We'll just walk at 3, whatever,
Yep.
right? Right?
Yeah, because
Well,
again, life happens,
it
right?
does. It does. And discipline is built through repetition on something. Discipline is not about force or being rigid. It's about repetition, consistency, building habits. Like you said, if these things happen when things become so familiar and normal that they no longer require any kind of emotional negotiation or requiring any kind of motivation. Discipline is what stays if you stick with something. Discipline is that thing that replaces motivation. So, we talk about the nervous system a lot. What role does that play in this? I think on the surface, most people would be like, hey, you guys talk about the nervous system a lot. Well, it literally wires your entire body. So it's important. But
Yeah.
in setting
Well,
goals,
your nervous system,
in
I mean, it
setting goals,
determines
bro,
everything about you.
well, in setting goals, Michael, no one's ever said that before. What do you mean nervous system? Why is it important? Because I'm sure most people would be like, what?
It's again sort of falling to your lowest level of training. Your nervous system dictates your actions. You brought up perfectly earlier how our unconscious mind is what is 95% of our thoughts, and that's out of our control. We may think that 5% where we're like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to become that, what we are consciously thinking of is what we're going to do. But it's that 95% of unconscious thoughts, which are tied directly to the nervous system, that will dictate how difficult things are for you.
Mm-hmm.
And your nervous system, when you're making change in your life, which is any goal you set, will probably bring some discomfort to you.
Yeah.
Your nervous system's going to flare up. So are those self-defeating thoughts or the self-sabotaging thoughts, depending on what direction it decides to go.
Mm-hmm.
And depending on how resilient we get with our nervous system, depending on how much we've learned resilience with our nervous system, is how well we're going to be able to handle that discomfort that comes with change. So the nervous system mastery is the most important part of creating change in life and how much change you can create at a time.
Well, because it literally decides how much stress or uncertainty and effort you can tolerate without shutting down. It's in charge of that until you regulate it, until you take control, right? And many things we talk about, if your system associates change with danger, which in a lot of us it does, or if it associates it with failure or rejection or loss of control, it will
Yeah.
resist the most positive affirmation, the most beautiful visualization. It will sabotage. It will stop you because it will make it hurt. It will make it hurt. And this is where that sabotage kind of enters. You'll start missing days, or you'll start procrastinating a lot, or you'll forget, or,
Yeah.
or you'll always be super tired for no reason all the time, right? Just to name a few things.
Yeah. Well, I think those are some key points.
What about that? What about that quote you have in the show notes?
Consistency beats intensity every time. It's about showing up. It's about giving your best, and by your best, it's not 100% every day. It's if you got 20% to give that day, you're giving that 20%. Because often it's like, I'm going to kill it today. You go through a few days of that, and then you're like, well, I'm not going to kill it today, so maybe I should just wait till tomorrow. And man, that you're done. It's over. Game over. It's just about being consistent with yourself. And again, this is one of the reasons why those micro goals are so important. Setting those small, realistic 1% pivots in your life instead of thinking you need to do a full 180.
Yeah. You know, discipline isn't built by pushing harder, being more resistant. It's built by creating consistency, like you said, tiny little small actions repeated as close to center as we can, right? As calmly as we can. We do teach ourselves our nervous system, our emotional states, everything. We teach it that growth does not equal a threat. And this takes time. But when discipline is aligned with these, progress stops feeling like a self-betrayal and it starts to be actually sustainable, which, you know, which brings us to our next section, which you already kind of said, start small enough to win daily, set yourself up for fail or set yourself up for success that way, right? Because the goals that survive real life are not impressive on paper. They're really boring. They're really
Yeah.
crappy looking, you know, but they are livable. That's the point. They're livable.
If
They're
your goal is to climb a mountain, it's going to take going and hitting the treadmill a couple months at least to get your body physically capable of just handling the terrain, let alone any other skills you got to learn.
well, and
But that treadmill does not sound exciting on paper.
no, it doesn't sound exciting just thinking about it. I hate the treadmill, but these things are livable. They are built to work on your stressful days, on your tired days, on these imperfect seasons, on the things that we really would like to not to do, like ride the treadmill. And again, this goes back to setting those goals only that work only on perfect conditions. But you got to start small enough to win daily, and you got to don't over celebrate, but kind of pay attention to your wins, right? But
Yeah, you have
also,
to celebrate your wins even.
yes,
That was one of the hardest ones for me is realizing, hey, I need to make sure that I don't just keep moving the goalpost, that I see what I'm doing and I am proud of myself because it's when I move the goalpost, all of a sudden I have no recognition for myself and I constantly feel defeated.
yes. That again, it goes back to the jar of marbles, man. There's every day is a win, especially if you were thrown off course, but you figured out a way to still do the thing even under imperfect conditions. That's even better. That's even a bigger win. Yeah, you got to build trust with yourself. And another thing you got to do is we talked about this much earlier in the show, but we'll say it again. You have to attach your goals to routines, not your mood swings.
Yeah. Another important thing that James Clear brings up in his book is habit stacking.
Hmm.
I know for me, the reason I was able to do that 6 month routine going to the kickboxing
Hmm.
is because the classes started as soon as I got off of work. There was no going home and having that chance to be stuck there. I had my gym bag in the car and I would change at work and then I would leave, go straight to the gym.
Hmm.
Figure out where you're going to have the least resistance or the least things to pull you away from your goals.
Yes, and this is a really powerful one because we tie these things to stuff we already do.
Yep.
Like waking up or brushing our teeth or making coffee. Or we talked about this in
Yep.
in the ritual show. Um, rituals are just routines, right?
Yeah.
Shutting down for the night. You stack these things, as you said, you stack these things on top of stuff we've always been doing forever. And that helps it. It helps it not be so optional. It doesn't give us a way out. Like you said, man,
Yep.
I got 5 minutes to get changed and I got to make it to this class because I got to drive up to this class. This helps it become part of the rhythm of your day and of your life, your daily, boring, ordinary life. Right?
Journaling. Do it right before you go to bed.
Mm-hmm.
If you go to bed at the same time every night, keep that journal right there, right next to your phone charger where you're plugging your phone in, and pick it up before you plug your phone in.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. And talk about and speaking of journaling, make sure you track consistently your wins and what you're doing and where you need to adjust. And let this goal be living like you, right? Make sure you're tracking it consistently. And you're not making sure that you're staying perfect. But this helps you stay present within it too. Because perfection just invites shame. But consistency trains our identity to this goal. And when you focus on showing up again and again, even imperfectly, you will reinforce that trust and that belief and that faith that you are someone who can follow through. And that's why it's important to celebrate these little wins too. Dude, I did it yesterday. Dude, I did it the day before. Dude, I did it the day before that. Man, I'm killing it, right? And don't treat the missteps as data because they're not data that you're writing down. And they're not verdicts. They just help you again stay present, even imperfectly.
I think another really important thing to keep in mind also do not set tons of goals. Keep it manageable. No more than 3, and even that's pushing it, especially
Right.
if you're someone who's struggles with getting out of your comfort zone or making change in life. Start with 1 or maybe 2.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that whole chasing burst of effort and not building a lasting system, and something that really we don't like to do because it feels icky is that we don't build in the possibility of failure. Now I know that sounds like kind of horrible for setting positive goals, but I never said that life was always positive. I've never said it and I never will. Failure is a teacher just as much as winning is. So, you don't have to design, build in, I'm going to fail exactly like this. You don't want to premeditate that. But pretending like it won't ever happen, that's just wishful thinking. That's more wish it, want it, do it, right? It's not actually going to happen. Real life will interrupt you. Real life will trip you. real life will slap you upside your head. You will get sick. You will get busy. You will lose focus. But a sustainable goal already includes at least the room for returning to it after being disrupted, right? Because really, what do I? The question you're asking this question, what do I do when I miss, is a much more important question than what do I do when I succeed.
Yeah. Because, I mean, look at, oh gosh, Edison and how many times he attempted to create his masterpiece. I mean, he failed, what was it, hundreds of times before he finally created the light bulb?
Yeah, most of them do. Yes. Well,
Thank you.
you're going to get us into a fight in the comments because a lot of people will say that somebody else invented that and he just stole it. But I digress. We weren't going to go there.
To the point, yes. To the point.
Yes. Failure is a part of it because failure is a teacher, and if we're not being taught, then we're not growing. And the point of goals is to grow. It should be anyway. You know, you can make goals about getting money, but you have to grow into a person who's good with money, or a person who, right? You have to grow as a person as your goals are being met. So, and you're right, consistency beats intensity every single time. One feels powerful in the fleeting moments, but consistency will change who you are. And when who you are changes, your goals will stop feeling like battles and they'll start feeling like expressions of your authenticity of your life even.
So when it comes to old failures, you know, because I think this is where a lot of people get hung up is old failures live in the nervous system. It really can just drag us down or demotivate us or get in the way when we're trying to make actual change. How can we start letting go of these so we can start working on starting clean and starting fresh?
Well, first of all, like I always say, when you call on me first, you can't deny them. You can't run from them. You got to call them out. And by calling them out, you're starting to refuse to let them dictate what you believe is possible now. We don't care about what happened then, in the sense that the things that happened have control over us. Those things did happen. We don't forget that, but they have no bearing on the power we have in the moment. And again, we're not going to get lost in what could be, right? We have to become present, and we have to call things out, even if they hurt, especially when they're uncomfortable. That's the first thing we do. But these quiet, these history carries weight on us, and it can carry weight in a bad way if we don't deal with it. Because if you're not approaching these things with a clean slate, and you bring every past failure or broken promise or whatever, and you didn't treat those things like teachers, it's going to be really difficult to start anything new.
Amen. You know, I think another place people get stuck is they hold their past selves to who they are today.
Mm-hmm.
We forget how much we grow, especially in the heat of the moment where we're flared up or triggered. We forget we are not the same person we were 10 years ago when that happened.
Yeah. You talk about a lot on the podcast, your journey from many years ago till now. And, you are killing it right now, but you're not the same person, and you realize that, you understand that. And you can't show up as you were then. Again, it's impossible. That person is dead. If you grew, then you must meet yourself where you're at.
You have to.
And even if you're carrying around some weight of the past still, well, you got to come clean with that too. If you want to start new, you have to learn to integrate these shadows. You must.
You got to understand the parts that are trying to stop you from becoming your best part. They have your best interests in mind, but their mechanisms are out of date and really helping you create the life you truly want.
Yeah. And as you said earlier, again, you don't need some perfect year or perfect month or some kind of symbolic reset to begin again. Because if you don't do the work, it's not going to matter anyway. Because I don't know if you alluded to this or not, but I'm just going to say it. When you sit around and wait for a perfect starting point, there's just a different kind of avoidance. You're just putting it off and putting it off and putting it off. Things.
God,
These things start with these internal choices, these decisions, putting your foot down, facing things.
Well, that takes me to the thought of like the trap of tomorrow.
Yes.
Man, I tell you what, I have fallen into that so many times. Tomorrow does not exist. You should never base anything you want to build or do in your life on, I will do that tomorrow.
Yeah.
Because tomorrow will never come.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what? I talk a lot. I talk a lot about, letting go of the past. And, again, you're not erasing the past. That stuff happened to lead to who you are today, for better or for worse, right? You start clean by just not dragging that stuff around, right? That's just right. And
Yeah.
and your goals really should support your life, not punishment. If again, we talked about this, I think, at the beginning of the show, but if something is rooted in shame or comparison or self-criticism or some need to prove you're worthy, it's not gonna sustain. It's about alignment. Remember, alignment, resonance, not any of those other things.
Well, I think alignment's so important, and we can easily sell ourselves on things that are not actually in alignment. What makes your soul sing?
Mhm.
What is the change that you know you want to make so badly? And what do you need to do to get to the point where you can make that change?
Right. Yeah, absolutely, dude. Oh, dang it. I was gonna steal Heather's water, but she drank it all. Darn it. Foiled again.
Foiled again. Do you have any closing thoughts before we jump into our affirmations and exercises?
Yeah, so remember, goals are not measurements of things like your value or your worth. They are simply tools. And for us, the way we would prefer, well, the way we do it and the way we're trying to get you to see is that they're tools for alignment. They can't be built on pressure or shame or fantasy because real life will crush them. But if we build them on honesty and structure and self-respect and trust, it becomes something that we can carry with you, especially on those really hard days. And you don't need more motivation. This is not meant to be a motivational speech, okay? Because you don't need more motivation. You need something that respects who you are and also respects the humanity within you, because that comes with being imperfect. So you don't need to become someone else. You just need to learn to work with who you are in the moment already. And you can't punish yourself into progress. You just can't. It doesn't work that way. Growth that is built on trust and compassion for ourselves and truth, that's steady. That's grounded, right? And that's going to be way more lasting. So my call to action today will be choose one goal and shrink the goal to meet you where you're at. Shrink it down to where it fits into your real actual life. All the good and bad, right? And try to anchor it and stack it, as Michael said, have it stack it on something you already do. It could be something mundane and boring. Those are the best things to stack on, by the way.
Take my exercise for this episode.
Oh, did I?
No, you're good. This is great. It's reiterating what we said earlier, and it's the point.
Right. Okay.
Keep going though.
I'm like, I don't remember seeing that. But and then look, decide what success looks on your worst day. That's another tip I'll give you. Not your best day, but your worst day. We all have bad days, and we can all look back and go, man, that was a really bad day. So if the goal could still sustain that day, then it'll last, because good days will be easy. So, and I want you to make this commitment to yourself. Just say, I will show up in a way I can sustain on my worst days. And don't forget to look for proof, and don't forget to create the evidence, and look for and let consistency be that proof. And let structure be your support. And again, let self-trust be the real victory, because that will be a big, big takeaway from this. And like Michael said earlier, you don't need to overhaul your entire life. You just need to find things that you truly resonate with and truly align with, and just start taking those steps. And then do it the next day. And eventually you'll be good. Be good to go.
Beautiful.
I'm looking at your exercise. I did kind of steal a little bit out of it. I didn't even-
Hey, it's a great one though, and I mean, we brought it up earlier, and I think people should definitely do it. So, as an extra, since he took my exercise, I'm going to attach, because James Clear has made it public material, his habit stacking guides and workbooks
Mm,
that you can access. So, just click on the link, print off the page, and it can help you really dissect your goals and set really realistic goals. So, I'm going to include that in the show notes. So, check that out below.
that'd be good.
For our affirmations today, I build momentum through consistency, not pressure. I trust myself to grow through small steps. I follow through even when motivation fades. My goals support my nervous system, not fight it. I become who I choose through daily action. And for our journaling prompts, am I setting this goal from self respect or self criticism? Dive deep into it, write it out. See where this goal truly originates. Is it aligned with who you are, or is it aligned with who you want people to see? What would consistency look like on my worst day, not my best, which is a really good one.
Just do it twice.
Just do it twice. And then who do I need to become for this goal to feel natural instead of forced? Thank you so much for joining us today. Please check out our different feeds, our shorts over on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram. You already know where to find the podcast. Also, check out newashley.com. A lot of exciting things coming down the hoops for that here soon, so stay tuned. And with love and gratitude, ad lucem.
Ad lucem.